"Goodbye, Tim," Martin said, his voice echoing through the communicator. "Take care of yourself." With a flash of light, the spaceship disappeared into the night sky, leaving Tim standing alone in the garage. He looked down at the communicator in his hand, knowing that no matter how far away Martin was, their bond would always remain. Mrs. Brown, ever the curious and kind-hearted landlady, found herself missing the peculiar happenings that seemed to follow Martin and Tim. Without the constant excitement, she decided to channel her energy into new hobbies. She took up gardening more seriously, transforming her backyard into a beautiful oasis that became the talk of the neighborhood. Her knack for hospitality didn't go unnoticed, and she started a small bed and breakfast, welcoming guests from all over. Her charming personality and the cozy atmosphere of her home made it a popular spot. Mrs. Brown also became more involved in community activities, organizing local events and charity drives, which brought her a sense of fulfillment and joy. Lieutenant Brennan, always suspicious of Martin, found himself with a lot more free time after Martin's departure. Without the mysterious Martian to keep an eye on, Brennan focused on his career, quickly rising through the ranks due to his dedication and sharp investigative skills. However, Brennan couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the world than met the eye. His experiences with Martin had opened his mind to the possibility of extraterrestrial life. He began to delve into UFO sightings and unexplained phenomena, becoming somewhat of an expert in the field. His colleagues often teased him about his alien obsession, but Brennan took it in stride, knowing that his instincts had been right all along. In his personal life, Brennan found a new sense of purpose. He reconnected with old friends and even started dating again, eventually meeting a woman who shared his interest in the unknown. Together, they traveled to various UFO hotspots, investigating sightings and enjoying their shared passion for the mysterious. Years had passed since Uncle Martin's departure, and Tim O'Hara had moved on with his life, though he never forgot his Martian friend. He had met a wonderful woman named Emily, and they had fallen deeply in love. As their wedding day approached, Tim couldn't help but think about Martin and how much he wished his friend could be there. On the morning of the wedding, Tim stood in his room, nervously adjusting his tie. He glanced at the small Martian communicator that Martin had given him. With a deep breath, he pressed the button. Far away on Mars, Martin was busy with his scientific research when the communicator beeped. Seeing Tim's signal, he smiled and immediately set to work preparing his spaceship for the journey back to Earth. Back on Earth, the wedding ceremony was about to begin. Emily looked stunning in her wedding dress, and the guests were all seated, waiting for the bride and groom. Tim stood at the altar, his heart pounding with anticipation and a hint of anxiety. Just as the music started, a familiar humming sound filled the air. The guests looked around in confusion as a bright light appeared in the sky. The light grew brighter and brighter until, with a gentle thud, Martin's spaceship landed just outside the venue. Martin stepped out, looking as dapper as ever in a Martian version of a tuxedo. He walked into the ceremony, and the guests gasped in amazement. Tim's face lit up with joy as he saw his old friend. "Uncle Martin!" Tim exclaimed, rushing over to embrace him. "Tim, my boy," Martin said, returning the hug. "I wouldn't miss this for the world." The ceremony continued, and Martin stood proudly by Tim's side as his best man. The vows were exchanged, and Tim and Emily were pronounced husband and wife. As they kissed, the guests erupted in applause, and Martin couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and happiness for his earthling friend. During the reception, Martin shared stories of his adventures on Mars, much to the delight of the guests. Even Mrs. Brown and Lieutenant Brennan, who had come to terms with Martin's true identity, joined in the celebration. As the night drew to a close, Tim and Emily thanked Martin for being there. "You made this day even more special," Tim said. Martin smiled. "I'm glad I could be here, Tim. Remember, no matter where I am, I'll always be just a button press away." With that, Martin bid farewell once more, promising to visit again soon. As his spaceship ascended into the night sky, Tim and Emily watched, knowing that their lives had been forever enriched by the presence of their favorite Martian.